Hey there guys, this is Cole. Welcome to the final Critters video I'm going to be doing. And today, I am going to do a ranking video of all 5 Critters movies from the worst to the best. Now, keep in mind, this is just my own personal list. This is my own opinion. And secondly, this is a franchise that I like the first 2 movies too, but I'm not a fan of the rest of them. But if you guys have seen my reviews, you know my thoughts on these movies. But without further ado, I want to hear from you guys down below in the comment section. How would you rank these movies? And without further ado, let's get into my ranking. Coming in at number 5 for me is going to be Critters 4, released in 1992. This movie's absolute garbage, and it's a shame because Critters 4 actually did have a good concept that could have worked. Because here's the thing about Critters 4: when it comes to movie franchises like Friday the 13th and with the movie Jason X and Leprechaun 4 in Space, those movies were destined to fail from the start because with Friday the 13th and Leprechaun, it makes 0 sense that those franchises would go to space. But the frustrating thing about this one is Critters is the type of movie that you actually could do a good sequel that takes place on a spaceship in space, because the critters themselves are aliens. So you would think that, okay, that concept makes sense, right? You know, you could make a good movie out of it, right? It is a concept that could have worked. Unfortunately, the problem with this movie is it's boring and the execution is very poor. Like the production design to this movie is really bad, and to be honest, I thought the franchise got stale with the third one, but this just nosedives itself even further. The characters are not interesting at all whatsoever. The only positives I will give this movie is I do think that Brad Dourif is good in the movie. I think that of all the actors in the movie, Brad Dourif, he's the only actor that's actually good in the movie and that's actually trying to give a good performance. And the whole concept of space is an idea that could have worked for Critters because the critters are aliens. But other than that, Critters 4 is just an absolute boring movie. It's just really bad and honestly one of the worst sequels. And yeah, I can see why this killed the franchise for 25 years until we got a movie that was not that much better, but we'll get to that shortly. But yeah, easily coming in at last place is Critters 4. Coming in at number 4 for me is going to be the most recent addition of the franchise, and that is Critters Attack from 2019. Now, I know that some people say this is the worst of the franchise, and I can see why, but I do prefer this slightly over Part 4, but that's not saying much because Part 4 is a really bad movie. But this movie, despite how awful it is, this movie does have some merits. Like, for example, I do like the idea of there being a good critter this time. I do like the idea of a bunch of evil critters on Earth, but then there's just like one critter that actually is a good guy that wants to fight against the other critters, and this critter has fur that's completely white all over, which makes it different and stands out from the other critters, because all the other critters, or the Krites, are just black and grayish over with red glowing eyes. So that is a unique new idea to the franchise. I will give credit to that. Despite having a very limited role, I do think that Dee Wallace is good in the movie. It was nice to see her character return from the first movie, and of all the actors, she was really the only one that turned in a good performance. And I do like the scene where one of the critters basically bites on an electric phone pole and electrocutes itself. Like, I thought that scene was funny. And there is some practical effect. And again, most of it's CGI that looks bad, but there is some good practical effects. But that's where my positives end. Other than that, Critters Attack is a lame direct-to-video sequel that, after waiting 25 years to do another Critters movie, this was certainly not the movie to return the franchise with, because this movie is really bad. And you just have this very poor story about a babysitter sitting these kids, and and again, it's not compelling, it's not interesting. And another thing that really hurts this movie, the CGI effects are really bad in this movie, I think that most of the acting aside from Dee Wallace is honestly terrible in this movie, and the whole ending of this movie just sucks too. This movie's bad, but it is a bit better than Critters 4, but that's not saying much. And this movie gets a 3 out of 10. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Critters 3. Like I said, the movie that caused the downfall of the franchise. Now, are there good qualities to this movie? Yes. Despite the fact that I'm not a fan of the way of the character and the way he's written, I do think that despite the way the character's written, I do like Leonardo DiCaprio as the main character in this movie, performance-wise. I do think that of all the actors in this movie, Leonardo DiCaprio, he was trying the best of all the actors in this movie, and this is his first credited role. And I don't like the way the character's written, but I do think performance-wise, he does do the best with the material he is given. This movie does have good practical effects. I will give it credit for that. And I guess it was nice to see Charlie from the first two movies return. And I guess my final positive is the apartment setting. It is an idea and concept that could work. Unfortunately, the execution of it's terrible, and my main problem with Critters 3 is that honestly, this movie's just boring, and I honestly do not find any of the characters interesting in this movie whatsoever, and it's just a boring, dull movie overall. But again, not as bad as like the bottom two, but not a movie I'd ever watch again, and I'll give this movie a 4 out of 10. Alright, coming in at number 2. Now, from here on up, there is a massive jump in quality, as I do rather like the first two movies. And I know I said I liked the first one a little better, but honestly, I gave it more thought. And so, the first two movies in both these franchises I really like. But so coming in at number 2 for me is going to be the very first movie that kicked off this franchise in 1986. And that is the 1986 creature feature sci-fi comedy movie, Critters, directed by Stephen Herek. Now, this is a rather fun movie, and this movie was actually directed by Stephen Herek, who directed Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the comedy starring Alex Winters and Keanu Reeves from 1989, which is one of my favorite comedy movies of all time. And I like the story to this movie. I like how this movie, it's a simple story about a kid and his entire family that are on a farm, and then this alien spaceship crashes, and then there are these small little furball alien creatures called the Critters that basically try to feast off the flesh of other animals, but they basically go after this family, and I like the simplicity of it. But what I really like about the movie Critters is this movie definitely plays along the comedy aspect really well. I thought the whole part where the critter sees like a stuffed doll of E.T. and just starts viciously mauling it. I thought that scene was rather funny with the way it was done. And I do think this movie does have a rather good cast for it. I guess really the only downsides to this movie, and they're just small little minor nitpicks. Most of the special effects are good, but, the digital effects are a little dated, and I guess the ending you could look at as a negative because it ends on a cliffhanger. But other than that, Critters is a rather fun movie, and it's a movie I'd recommend to those who haven't seen it if you enjoy movies like Gremlins, and I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. But coming in at number 1 for me is actually going to be the second movie, Critters 2, The Main Course. This movie takes everything that I liked about the first Critters movie, but to me, honestly, just does it better. I think that the comedy is better this time around. I like how this movie takes the concept of the first Critters movie where you have these aliens invading a farm, but it takes that concept, but it just cranks it up to 11, where critters are basically attacking a town on the Easter holiday. I think that I really like the concept of this movie where the critters are basically attacking a town on Easter. and the main kid character from the first movie returns. I think that that's rather cool. I like how Charlie has a bigger role in the movie this time around as one of the bounty hunters. And this movie, for being a PG-13 rated movie, it does get dark in some areas, but, and again, I think that the comedy is better this time around. Like, I like the part where, you know, the critters do not speak English, they speak their own language, so there's a part where a critter is speaking in whatever language it speaks, but, like, we see a subtitle on the screen, and I like the part where part of the critter's hair falls off, and it says BITCH ING. Like, I thought that scene was funny. And then the whole part where the critters just run up, like a bunch of critters, like maybe hundreds of them, roll up into this ball to like feast on stuff, and they attack a person who's running, is rather well done. And just, yeah, a fun movie overall. And yeah, I'm gonna give Critters 2 the main course a 9 out of 10, and it's easily my favorite movie of the franchise, so it comes in at number 1. So yeah, that was my ranking of the Critters franchise. I want to hear from you guys down below. How would you rank all 5 of these movies, or the ones you've seen? And next up, I will be continuing on the Jurassic Park review series, where next up I'll be reviewing the Lost World Jurassic Park. But until then, we'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.